Thank you for coming to this panel session on funding sources for early career researchers. So I'm Luke Rhodes Leader. I'm currently the chair of the ECR network at the OR Society, and I'll just give a very brief introduction to the network, and then I'll say how the session's going to run, and then move on to the speakers. So the ECR network is a network which is run by ECRs for ECRs, and it's aiming to support people who are at an early stage of their research career, whether that's the end of the PhD, if you're working in postdocs, or if you're in the first few years of an academic position. And what we aim to offer is some peer support in terms of answering questions about career-related things, and we also try to do some positive support as well, in terms of highlighting and celebrating accomplishments. We also do, I suppose the main thing we do really is on the event side. So we do some training events and some workshops as well. If anyone has any ideas for topics that they would like to cover, them, please get in touch, because we're always looking for ideas in terms of how what would be useful to the ECR community. We have a network on the OR Society, so please join that if you want to receive emails and hear about the events that are coming up. And we also have a group on LinkedIn as well, and there we post about network related things, but we also post about job opportunities and funding opportunities as well, as and when we see them. So we've had a few different past events. So we had a 2-day workshop a couple of years ago, which we looked at a variety of topics, largely thinking about funding on that instance. We've had a number of webinars in terms of academic job searches. We've had a session on growing into an effective and fun lecturer. We had a personal development skills session last week in person in Birmingham, and we've also had panel sessions at conferences. So we've got 2 conferences coming up where we're planning to have things as well. So we're at the IMA OR Society Mathematics of OR conference. We're going to have a session there joint with the early career mathematicians at the IMA about life after PhD, and we'll also have a panel session on communication and various other networking opportunities at Euro, if you're going to either of those. So in terms of today, we're talking about funding opportunities which are particularly geared up for early career researchers. We've got 4 speakers. We've got Shinatra Amatmani, who's a portfolio manager at EPSRC, and she covers the OR area. We've got Jane Walker from the International Centre for Mathematical Sciences, so she's a centre manager there. So those are 2 sources of funding in the mathematical sciences and OR, which are particularly relevant. So we'll hear from them. We've then got Dr. Rob Schoen from Lancaster University. He held a small grant recently as well, which is one of the funding sources that we'll talk about. And then we've got Professor Christos Vasilakis he's a chair of management science at the University of Bath School of Management, and he'll talk to us about other sources of funding as well as the ones that we'll hear about, particularly with a sort of healthcare focus. for healthcare OR. So yes, that's the order. So I will stop sharing and I will pass on to Shanatra to start. Oh, before Shanatra starts, I will also say that at the end of the session, we'll have a general Q&A after each speaker. If you have we might let one or two particular questions if it's particularly for one of the speakers. Otherwise, we'll do questions at the end. So yes, I'll let Shanatra carry on.
Thank you very much, Luke. Thank you, everyone, for having me today. And I think I've met some of you before already, and I can recognize the faces and the name. So yes, I'm here to talk about EPSRC funding opportunities. So just one moment, I'm gonna share my screen. Yes, I believe everybody can see my screen. Yeah,
yes, we
cool.
can see that. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. So so my name is Shanatra. I EPSRC or our portfolio manager. I'm in the mathematics sciences team, and apart from that, I also lead the Math Small Grant opportunity as well. I have quite a slide to go through, so I might go through a little bit fast, but just let me know if you have any questions. So for ECRs, in order for us to achieve all of our 6 objectives, so we have different pot of money that we invest in our research and innovation. And for mathematical sciences, we have our budget comes from the core research and innovation, and that's the main pot that we have money from. EPSRC and ECRs also have the different pot of money for collective and talent fundings. This money is for CDT, DPT, and also we have different pot for infrastructure, centrally managed funding as well. For example, for the future leader fellowships opportunities, those one come from the centrally managed funding. So for the funding opportunities, some of them, is only open for mathematical sciences and community. Some of them open for, for the whole EPSRC remit, engineering and physical science, and some of them also, open across ECRI remits. So in terms of the funding opportunities by career stage, if you are postdoctoral researchers, obviously one of them is postdoctoral fellowship, which is only available within a limited research area. And luckily, mathematical sciences is one of that. And of course, all researchers can also apply as part of the one of our maths remit. And apart from that, you can get involved on the grant application by being a name postdoctoral researchers on an EPSRC grant, or you can also get involved by being the researchers and co-lead on a grant as well. But if you are a new academics, one funding opportunity that only available for the new academic is the New Investigator Award, and this one is the award that only for those who are new in the academy. I have some more details about New Investigator Award a little bit later on, just for you to understand the scheme a little bit better. And apart from that, the Open Plus Fellowship, the ECRI Future Leader Fellowship, and on the standard grant, also available for the new academic, as well as the early career researchers. Apart from that, the Math Small Grant, Overseas Travel Grant, and the Network Grants, these one are also available for all different stages of your career. So in terms of the funding opportunities, we have 2 types of funding opportunities. One is the community-led or discovery research. That means you can do research project on any topic that you want to do. It can be through different routes that you can apply. For example, it's the fellowships or the Math Small Grant. And within the Math Small Grant, we also have another route within the Math Small Grant is called discipline hopping. It's the route when you're hoping to gain new skills or new knowledge. It can be within mathematical sciences. For example, if you have a project that you think algebra, might be very beneficial to your project, you can use the discipline hopping route, to explore that. Or if is the research area in other remits within UKRI, you can use the small grant discipline hopping route for that as well. Apart from that, the standard grant, investigator award, network grant, overseas travel grant, and working with overseas scientists, those are also available for discovery research. Another type of the research that we fund is the strategic intent. These are the opportunities that we open, in order to support the government mission. For example, like the proof of concept. This funding opportunity is open for the research project, that leads into commercialization activities. If you're doing something around that area, you can have a look at that. And there are lots of current open funding opportunities. For example, in EPSRC, as of today, I checked this morning, we have 31 opportunities open. So you can have a look into that if you're looking for something more specifically within your area. And we have over 128 funding opportunity across UKRI as well. In terms of the assessment criteria, at the moment, we have 5 core assessment criteria that we use across UKRI, as we want to use this harmonized approach. So they are vision approach, applicant and team capability to deliver, resources and cost justification, and also the ethic and responsible research and innovation. Just for you to know that all these 5 core assessment criteria, we no longer wait, they're all equally important. So this is a table, I just try to put, what the assessment criteria that will be looking at, for each funding opportunities. As you can see now, like for standard grant and the small grant, we use 5 core assessment criteria, the harmonized approach that I mentioned earlier. But if you're looking to apply for the new investigator award, we have additional criteria, which is the research organization support, similar to the fellowship opportunity as well. But for the fellowship, the one that we just relaunched this month is that we also need to assess your career development as well. This is the additional one. But if you're looking to apply for a network grant, to do some networks, the 5 assessment criteria to apply, but we also need to know about the added value of the network as well, the one that you're hoping to do. And for the overseas travel grant, there's slightly different criteria, but it's very similar. So I've been asked to highlight some of the funding opportunities for early career researchers. So one of them, is the New Investigator Award. So what it is, for the New Investigator Award is the award that we, open for those who haven't held the EPSRC grant before as the project lead. So this must be your first EPSRC grant as project lead. And if you hold any EPSRC grant in the past, for example, like a small grant, because the small grant is below 100K in value, so you can apply for that. And also your previous grant, you shouldn't have a more than 6 months pre-DRA time on that, and also the capital equipment, it shouldn't excess £20,000. So in the case that you had your postdoc fellowship before, of course, the grant value, is above 100K, but if the project, has PDRA involved less than 6 months, or the lower capital equipment, you can also be eligible to apply. In terms of the other eligibilities, questions, whether if you hold a different type of fellowship currently or in the past, something like that, I encourage everyone to email the match team, just to double check with the eligibility, because it often assessed on a case by case basis, and we might need some more information from you. So next is the fellowship. For the fellowship, we have 3 types of fellowship. So I start with the postdoc fellowship. again, the postdoc fellowship is only open, within their limited research area. And again, mathematical sciences is one of that. And for the fellowship funding opportunity, it's not just only about the research project, but it is the opportunities, for you to develop yourself as the, personal development and also professional development. The good thing about the postdoc fellowship is that there's no need for you to hold a permanent academic position. For example, if you are currently a PDRA on a grant, or if you about to finish your PhD, you are eligible to apply. Onto the Open and Open Plus fellowship, it's the same. It's not just about research project. It's also about developing you, in your career and your personal. The differences between the Open Plus fellowship is that the plus element, we suggest that you can use the about 20 to 50 minutes, 20 to 50 percentage, of your time, to establish or do some positive change in the community. That's the plus element that you can take advantage of. And this is just an overview about the differences between the postdoc Open and Open Plus. Like as you can see, for the postdoc fellowship, you cannot have the additional research staff, within your team, because it's mainly it's about you. Yes, and some bits and pieces as well. And for this slide, I'm going to share with all of you later. So so you can come back and look at it later on. Apart from the 3 fellowships that are open for mathematical sciences and researchers, and we also have the ECRs and Future Leader Fellowships. This one is also, the funding community that support early career researchers. And before this one, it open for the whole ECRs remit. Anybody can apply for that. And also another thing to note is that you don't need to hold permanent positions to apply for the ECRs Future Leader Fellowships as well. Another fellowship just want to highlight in case it's something that relevant to you is that is the Dabney Jackson Fellowship. It's the fellowship for those who want to return to a research career, after a break of 2 or more years. And for this one, it's also open for the whole ECRs remit. Next is the small grant. This is another one that I'm asked to highlight about it. Also, the opportunity list for this one. So what is the small grant? So the small grant is the funding opportunity, that's only available for mathematical sciences and to do the smaller project, which can be only up to 80K, and also the duration of the grant, is only up to 12 months. So what can you use the small grant for? Obviously, it has to be, for the research project. That's the primary focus of your project. That has to be. It can be the project that you want to explore and research in a new area. Generate proof of principle or result, or use to conduct short follow-on projects as well. For the small grant, an opportunity, this one is the we have a single submission stage. That means when we receive your grant application, of course, we have to check eligibility, and then your application will go straight to the expert panel to assess your grant application. So the process will be relatively quicker or faster, compared to the other funding opportunities. And yes, the standard EPSRC eligibility rules also apply for maximum grants. For the other funding opportunities, if you have collaborators from abroad, here EPSRC, and we also have international agreement with the overseas funders. So if your collaborators are from the US, Luxembourg, Brazil, Ireland, Austria, or Norway, you can apply for funding through the working with overseas scientists routes. That's available for you. Also, if you're looking to apply for Horizon Europe, your ECRs or EPSRC, we also can help you with that, through our national contact point networks, and also our UK research office in Brussels as well. Then the last part, I just want to share about the application tips. If you haven't produced or developed one before, or even you've done it already, maybe you might get some additional information that can be useful to you. So yes, so what's the tips? So firstly, of course, you have to be clear and structured about your science cases. Discuss the option, the risk management, has to be looked at, and all the required documents, obviously have to be submitted. And another thing that I like to highlight is that you should get your application reviewed by your colleagues. They can be your peer colleague or the senior ones. And also there are 3 types of audiences who are going to read your grant application. Firstly, is us, EPSRC. At least we must be able to understand your research in order to look for the appropriate reviewers. And then the second group of audience is the expert reviewers. So they are the expert within your area, specifically for your grant application, and that the one that you submitted to. So the technical details elements, should be there for them to have a look at it. And also at the panel, they all are the experts across mathematical sciences, so they have to understand your research area as well. In terms of what the good application looks like, one thing is you should talk about is like what excites you about your research. The vision. It has to be that what excites you, and also why you choose this type of grant, and why is the best route. For example, why are you looking at the small grant? And for example, if you can justify that, and also the research should be novel and also added value. I believe all the research project will create some added value anyway. But if you can make it clear, methodology has to be clear, and also the work plan as well. And the project should be ambitious, but at the same time, it should be realistic as well. And when it gets to the applicant response, what I like to say is that your response, please use your for your response, you should back up with your evidence, and there's no need to repeat all the good things, because the reviewers already know about it. And at this point, you are communicating to the panel members, not the reviewers. So this is the one thing that I would like to highlight, that you're not responding directly to the reviewers, but you're trying to explain or justify your point to the panel members who will be assessing your grant application. And that's one way that you can see, or what the good application looks like, or the one that's not so good, is to get involved by reviewing some of our grant applications, so then you can see other researchers and how they write, for example, the ethic and RRI within your research area, or how they portray the visions and other different assessment criteria. You can have a look at that. If you're interested to review some of our grant application that we're currently processing, you can get in touch directly to me or the MASH team, or you can apply for the peer review college, where once you get accepted within our peer review college, we will provide some trainings about our peer review process as well. And one last thing that I'd like to plug in is that currently I receive lots of grant application, including from the OR communities, so a lot of things to process. So if you receive an email, invite, to review grant applications, or to join as the panel member, you can just let us know as quick as possible whether you can do it or not. If you can do it, that's absolutely brilliant. But if not, then I can reach out to other researchers, so then we can process the grants in a timely manner. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you. I think I saw a question.
Yeah, thanks, Sumatra. There is a question in the chat. It seems quite a broad one, so I think we might leave that one to the end, and so that we can get multiple perspectives on it, rather than it being specific to EPSRC. Are there any other questions that anyone has for Sumatra? Okay. In that case, thanks, Sinatra, and we'll hear from you again when we get to the.
Can I have a very quick question?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure.
Yeah. What are the pitfalls that from the applications that you receive from ECRs that you have to avoid as ECRs in terms of like applications?
Right. I mean, sometimes, either the application stage, the peer review stage, or even like the interview stage. One thing that I've noticed within the team as well is that sometimes they don't answer the question, directly, and also they don't touch upon the assessment criteria, because the panel members or reviewers, they all look at the assessment criteria in order to assess your grant application. So if you can demonstrate or say things clearly, for each assessment criteria, I think that will give you a strong position, that you demonstrate all the criteria that we're looking at. And yes, I mean the additional examples, if I think that would be brilliant. And again, as I said, there are 3 types of audiences that will read your grant application. So everybody, your grant application should consist of the technical part. That's definitely, but of course at the same time, the expert in the mathematical sciences and also EPSRC, should be able to understand, like your grant application should be able to understand by lay people, lay intelligent people as well. So that's another point I like to highlight. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll move on to Jane. Well, yeah, hand on to her.
Thank you. Okay, I hope you can all see my screen, and thank you very much for having me. And I also just very quickly want to thank Sinatra for your explanation of how to write a good proposal and how to respond to a proposal. I thought that was excellent, and that would also apply to ICMS. I thought they were very good points. I particularly liked the one about don't criticize the reviewer. I have to say that a lot of people who are very experienced researchers haven't quite learned that one yet. So I have come to talk to you about ICMS in Edinburgh and our various funding opportunities. I am the head of administration here at ICMS, and one part of my job is to work with people to help them to develop their proposals and to develop ideas for research that ICMS might be able to fund. So I'm just going to start with a little bit of background about ICMS. I don't know how many of you have been here. We're based in Edinburgh. We've been here for over 30 years. We are primarily funded by EPSRC, with money from some other sources, including our parent universities and some private donations. And our role really is to give people time and space to explore their research and to develop their ideas and to develop their careers. And we do that through lots of different ways. This is just a little bit more information about ICMS and our principal aims, which are all very laudable. And as I say, the main way that we achieve these is by bringing people together, mostly in Edinburgh, to explore their research and to develop different ideas. And we do this through a number of different schemes. The funding is available to UK-based researchers. Obviously, we have international in our name, so we're bringing people from the rest of the world as well. However, when you apply for an ICMS grant of any sort, one person has to be based at a UK institution and be eligible to hold an EPSRC grant. These are the examples of the primary things we do, where our bread and butter activities are research workshops, which are week-long events. And in the past few years, we've been running around about 40 to 45 of these a year. And then we also have a very popular activity called Research in Groups, where we bring small groups of people to Edinburgh to work on a research project for up to a month, but typically 2 weeks. We also have a range of knowledge exchange activities, which are done in conjunction with our KE partners in the UK through the KE Hub, and some events that we do independently. And we also have some public engagement activities as well. And as I said, our funding primarily comes from EPSRC. So 2 years ago, we launched a new initiative, which I just want to touch on very briefly, which is called Mathematics for Humanity. And this is a really interesting idea of how can we use mathematics for good, and how can mathematicians collaborate with people from other disciplines to explore how maths can solve social problems. And so, for example, we've recently run a program on the mathematics of rewilding. So mathematicians working with people from other sciences like biology and geography and social sciences to look at what are the actual benefits of rewilding. There's lots of and when I first heard this, I thought, is this talking about planting wild meadows on roundabouts? And yes, it is. How can maths prove the benefit of rewilding for society? We also ran an event about the mathematics of voting and representation, which was really interesting. And then last year we were given some money from a private donor, which enables us to run activities elsewhere in the world for the first time. So we're now partnering with institutes in Africa and Southeast Asia to run different events to help build capacity in mathematics in those areas. Okay, so if you haven't been to ICMS in Edinburgh already, here's some little pictures of our lovely spaces. We have amazing spaces here with lovely views. Unusually for Edinburgh, we're set up in quite a tall building, so we have amazing views across the city and out to the sea. The events spaces are flexible and can be used for different things in different ways, and we also have wonderful facilities for AV, enabling us to do hybrid meetings. And as well as the spaces that we have here in Bays, we also use 2 other spaces in Edinburgh. We rent space at number 14 India Street, the birthplace of James Clerk Maxwell, and that's where we put our research and groups visitors who have this lovely space. It's quiet, inspirational space to work in, and they're just left to their own devices to get on with maths. And there are no distractions, which everybody really, really welcomes. There's nothing to do there but work. And then we also have spaces in a lovely new University of Edinburgh space called the Edinburgh Futures Institute, which is a reimagined Victorian hospital with amazing big spaces, again, very flexible for doing all sorts of different activity. Okay, so funding opportunities. What have we got? I think that ICMS, it's important to note that ICMS is here for people at all stages of their career, and we're very happy to work with early career researchers and find opportunities for you to get involved in getting funding from ICMS and running activities here. We have in the past few years run a few workshops specifically for early career researchers or younger researchers in various disciplines of mathematics, but that's not essential. I think what I really always like to say about ICMS is that we try to be sort of non-hierarchical, and the real benefits of coming to an event at ICMS is that you are mixing with people at every stage in your career, and you're all here because you're interested in that particular area, not necessarily because of your name or your position. So you get an opportunity to just all be together for a week and find yourself sitting next to somebody who can, really help you in your career, who you might otherwise not meet. So these are the main funding opportunities we have, and I'll start by talking about research workshops. These take place here in Edinburgh, or you can run them at your own institution under the ICMS ACT scheme. That's where we just send you the money and you run the event yourself. The big benefit of coming to Edinburgh is that you get the support from my staff who have got huge experience in running events and know how to make the most of your week and how to make the most of the money that you get from us. We can talk, ICMS will help you with the proposal process in the first place. I would talk you through that and explain, how to write a good proposal, what I know that our programme committee of mathematicians likes and doesn't like, why things might get rejected. I'm very happy to talk you through that. The proposals are peer reviewed. It takes about 4 months, the whole process, before you get an outcome. And we're generally working a year to a year and a half in advance for a research workshop. So for example, we're currently evaluating proposals for workshops to take place in the second half of 2026, 2027. If you want to do an ICMS event, we can generally, that can happen sooner because it's, as I said, that's something you would run at your own institution. So the money that we give you is up to £24,000, and that generally funds around about 30 people to come to Edinburgh. And by fund, I mean gives them accommodation in Edinburgh, pays for meals, lunches and snacks, and would be a contribution towards their travel. So the staff have extraordinary experience in, helping you run the very best event and can advise you on what the right kind of event is. But we are also, we're not prescriptive at all. We're very open to new ideas and hearing from people about other types of events they've done, and if they want to be flexible, we're very, very much open to that. However, I do have to reiterate that we are responsible, the staff are responsible for all of the practical aspects. So you absolutely don't have to worry about how many bedrooms there are, who's going to have lunch when, and that's stuff we do. So you absolutely can just focus on the science. Okay, so that's our research workshop schemes. Just to note, the next deadline is the 1st of April. So if you're interested, please do get in touch. I mentioned research in groups. This has become a really, really popular and very valued scheme where we give people money and space to do their research, to take you away, bring you to Edinburgh, and you take you away from all your daily chores and responsibilities, and you can absolutely just immerse yourself into a short research project with collaborators either from the UK or internationally. We're typically, the groups are sort of 3 to 4 people who are here for 2 weeks. We have had larger groups, we have had smaller groups. What I would say about ICMS funding is that we're always very flexible and open to good ideas, and ultimately we're interested in very good quality and valuable mathematics. Also, we have a knowledge exchange event fund, and again, it's just to run events with a KE focus and to maximise the impact of mathematics by bringing different groups of people together. We have been doing more of these events, as I mentioned at the beginning, with our colleagues in the KE Hub. We've been running a series of funding of KE catalysts where we're helping people work on longer projects, but I'm not sure that we're going to run that again because of finance. Okay, so that's knowledge exchange ideas, and I mentioned at the beginning mathematics for humanity workshops. We can run projects in exactly the same way of all our other schemes, and in addition we run summer schools and winter schools as well in areas. So for example, this year we're running a summer school in algebra and bringing about 30 young mathematicians from Africa to come and work with colleagues from the UK. This activity can take place anywhere in the world thanks to the funding that we have from XDX markets like everybody else. Okay, so that's really all I have to say. It's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of ICMS. Thank you very much. We are absolutely open to ideas. It's, we love to hear about new innovations and different ideas in different areas of mathematics. I'd be very happy to talk to you. This little photograph of everybody waving goodbye is a recent initiative that we've done at ICMS, which is a retreat for women in applied mathematics. So we've done 3 of these now. So women in all areas of applied mathematics coming to spend a week together in Edinburgh, one, to talk about their work, but also to talk about how to develop their careers and any barriers to those, and learning lessons from women more senior in their, more advanced in their careers, but also just building up a network. And I think that that's actually a really important thing to say about coming to ICMS and doing anything at ICMS. It's a fantastic networking opportunity. And we do a feedback questionnaire at the end of every event, and people always talk about how much they value, not so much the actual, there's a lot to be said for the maths that's being done whilst you're here, but also it's the stuff that happens around the edges, the space around the talks, where you can just meet and talk and network and develop ideas. Which leads me to say one final thing, sorry, that we have a small fund called a follow-on fund. So if you were to come to an ICMS workshop, not one that you were running, but one that you were just a participant at, and you met someone there and you wanted to pursue an idea with them, we can give you a small amount of money to facilitate that, so that you could travel to, have a collaboration day with them at their institute or whatever. So there are lots and lots of opportunities for funding at ICMS, and I'm very happy to talk to anyone and to answer any of your questions. So thank you very much for your time. Okay.
Thank you, Jane. That was very interesting. Excuse me. We do have one specific, well, 2 specific things for Jane. One's a suggestion to have possibly a journal or networking events perhaps outside Edinburgh.
Okay.
And then another question, what's the best way to keep up to date with ICMS activities and opportunities?
You can sign up to a mailing list on our website, or you can just look at our website regularly. We often advertise through, I send out messages through using the HODMs list, the heads of department list, so you'll receive messages that way. But please just keep an eye on our website. I like the idea, the thing about doing things outside of Edinburgh, maybe going to London. That's an interesting idea. Thank you. We'll take that on board. I'm not quite sure what you mean by a journal. I mean, other than thinking of a traditional journal of mathematical papers, do you mean like a publication of some sort?
Yes, it'll be nice to have ICMS's own journal, or maybe going forward even see it organizing its own applied mathematics conference or some sort. So
Okay.
that'll be nice.
Okay, thank you. No, it's really interesting. Yes, and thank you, Carol. Yeah, we do share our information around. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Jane. So we'll move on to Rob next, who's at Lancaster, and we'll talk to you about his small grant.
Okay, hi everyone. Those were really interesting talks. I learned a few things already. So I'm just going to try and share my slides. Can you see this okay?
Yes, I can see that.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for having me today. Just to start off by introducing myself. My name is Rob Schoen. I'm currently a lecturer in OR in the Management Science Department at Lancaster University. And this short talk is going to be about my experience in applying for and holding an EPSRC small grant in mathematical sciences. This slide is just showing a little bit of my background. I first came to Lancaster at the end of 2016. I'll mention why this was relevant, why this is relevant in a moment. At first, I was hired as a postdoc researcher to work on an EPSRC funded project that had just been awarded funding called OR Master. This was a very large project that went on for more than 6 years, although I only remained in that role as a postdoc for 3 years. Then after 3 years, the chance came up to apply for a permanent job at Lancaster as a lecturer in the Management Science Department. So I applied for that and started as a lecturer in December 2019. Then just under 3 years after that, I submitted my first research grant application. It was for an EPSRC small grant in mathematical sciences, which is one of the opportunities that Janarcha talked about earlier. This was in collaboration with my colleague, Jamie Fairbrother, who also works at Lancaster. In fact, Jamie did exactly the same things at the same times as me, because he also came to, he started work on the OR Master project at the same time that I did, and also became a lecturer at the same time that I did. So because we'd had some experience working together already, we thought it would be a good idea to apply for our first grant together. And by the way, there's a reason why there's a 3-year gap between these two things over here. The reason is that when I became a lecturer, I had to pass a 3-year probation period. And one of the requirements was that you have to submit a research grant by the end of your probation period. So one of the reasons why we submitted the application in November 2022 was that it had to be done by December 2022 in order to meet the probation requirements. And I'm sure probably some people on this call have been in the same kind of situation where you need to do certain things in order to pass your probation. So to be honest, when we were preparing the application, for me, it had a sense of urgency about it because I had to meet this deadline for my probation. I think Jamie had actually passed his probation already because of some of the other things he'd done. But for me, it was one of the last remaining tasks that I had to do in order to pass my probation. So although I believe you can apply for an EPSRC small grant at any time, for me, it really had to be done by this time. And then the grant was awarded a few months after that, and we began working on the project starting from November 2023. I'll talk more about that later. Just to mention what our research topic was about. So first of all, just to avoid confusion, this is actually, I mentioned I had prior experience of working on a project called OR Master. This is going back to 2016. So this project is not the one that I applied for a grant for. This is one that I was hired as a postdoc to work on. And yeah, we had this large project at Lancaster called OR Master, which was funded for 6 years, starting in 2016. It ended up going on a bit longer than 6 years because it was extended due to COVID. And this project was all about finding ways to optimize the allocation of scarce resources at airports. In other words, utilizing airport capacity in the most efficient way possible. So Jamie and I had been hired as postdocs to work on this project, and we were extremely fortunate in that respect because the OR Master project had a lot of industrial stakeholders, and so we were able to meet people working in the aviation industry, including people from NATS, which is the National Air Traffic Services, Eurocontrol, and representatives from airports and airlines in the UK and Europe as well. So because we'd had this experience already of working on an aviation-related project and gaining industrial contacts through that, it seemed obvious that when it came to preparing a research grant of our own, we should try to build on this experience and try to take this aviation research in a slightly different direction. So that's basically what we did. So this is our first research grant that we applied for. We developed a new project called Coordination of Strategic and Tactical Interventions for Reducing Air Traffic Delays, a case study based on Heathrow Airport, or STIRAD for short. And a really good thing about this was that the contacts that we had at NATS that we gained through working on OR Master agreed to support our project as an official project partner, and that was really a massive help to us. But I won't go into any further detail about the project itself in this talk, because I guess the purpose of the talk is more to talk about the general process of applying for the grant and how we managed things after it was awarded. So during the early months of 2022, I would say I felt quite under pressure because I knew I had to submit the application by the end of November 2022. And I had it in my mind that writing the application would take a lot of time, and I had to find time to do this in addition to teaching and supervision and papers I had to write, which were also needed in order to pass the probation. And what I remember was that in about June or July of 2022, having already thought about what I was going to write for months and losing a bit of sleep over it, one day I just sat down and started trying to write a first draft of the case for support. And this turned out to be surprisingly quick. Once I started writing, I wrote the first draft in about 1 or 2 days. The case for support was a document that had to be a maximum of 4 pages, so not very long. I think that requirement might have changed now, but when I applied for this originally, it was a maximum of 4 pages. So once I started writing and trying to include everything that needed to be included, the pages were filled up quite quickly. Of course, after writing the first draft, there were still plenty of other things to do after that. We went through some rounds of revisions and seeking feedback from people before the final submission. In case you're wondering, the case for support had the following sections. It had a bit of context explaining the problem we were going to address and why it was important. That included a few paragraphs. Then it had a mathematical description of the problem, including a formulation and objective function and that kind of thing, an explanation of how our algorithmic solution approach was going to work. That was about 1.5 pages, including a diagram. Then we had a short section with the 3 main objectives of the project. Then we had another short section on ability to deliver, basically explaining why we were suitable people to carry out this research, and also we mentioned our project partner NATS in this part. We had a couple of paragraphs on impact, timeliness, and novelty, explaining what kinds of impacts we were going to aim for and why the proposed research aligned well with topical issues such as the need to transition to a low carbon economy. And we also had a section on expertise of the host organization, basically talking about Lancaster having a very strong OR group and also a research group that focuses on transportation and logistics. So, as I mentioned, although I wrote the case for support in June or July of that year, there were still some further things that needed to be done. In terms of the documents that were needed, we had to prepare not only the case for support, but also a 1-page justification of resources, providing details of the costs that we expected to incur from things like traveling to conferences and visiting our project partners. And we also got our project partner to provide a letter of support, which was important as well. And then we had to fill in a lot of information on the JES website, that's the Joint Electronic Submissions website, that we needed to go through when submitting the bid. Although some of the information we needed to provide on JES was actually quite similar to the info we'd already provided in the case for support, so that wasn't particularly a long process. Something we did spend plenty of time on, though, was revisions and asking people for feedback before we actually submitted the documents. The research services group within our faculty was really helpful, and they shared some examples of previous bids which have been successful in getting funding, including for the specific scheme we were applying for. So we were able to use those to get an idea of what needed to be included in our own bid. And we also asked for help from some professors within our departments who were very experienced in applying for grants, and they were very generous in giving their suggestions as well. Finally, of course, we revised our documents many times before the final submission. So after we submitted the bid, we then needed to wait a few months. And then in March 2023, we got the good news in an email from the EPSRC that our grant had been ranked high enough for funding. Apparently, there had been a panel that had taken place, and there were 20 bids that were assessed, and the top 4 were the ones that had been awarded funding, and ours was one of the top 4. So this was obviously exciting news. I hadn't really expected it to be successful because although I thought we had a reasonable chance, I also know how competitive these processes are. So I've been trying not to get my hopes up too much about the outcome. So as I mentioned, we got the good news in March 2023, and our project then started in November 2023 and ran for 12 months until the end of 2024. So it actually ended a few months ago. Just to say a little bit about the experience of having the grant, first of all, in terms of the research time it gave us, in the application, we'd requested funding for 30% of our time each, Jamie and I, to spend on the project. So this meant we were able to get a buyout from our usual university workload, so we had less teaching and other responsibilities during that period. So this meant we needed to try and spend 30% of our work time on the project during that year. I would say we did manage to do this, although it wasn't really a case of spending 30% of our time every single week on the project, because inevitably there were some weeks where we were able to spend more and some weeks where it was less, depending on other commitments that we had, because we still needed to do some teaching and marking and supervision and so on. But we did have regular meetings throughout the project to try to make sure that things were still on course. And we also had fairly regular meetings with our project partners at NATS, mostly online, but we also visited them at their offices in Southampton as well. So in terms of what we got out of the project, well, as we all know, academic research is kind of never ending in the sense that it always branches out into new ideas. So our work in this area is still continuing, but we did manage to achieve some things during the project. We gave presentations at a couple of conferences, the Euro conference in Denmark and the OR Society conference in the UK. And I took part in a couple of other engagement events related to our work as well. We have a working paper in progress, which we're collaborating with our project partners on. And with Jamie's help, we've managed to produce some really nice and user-friendly computer code related to the algorithms we've developed, which we're planning to make available as well. And of course, we hope that this small grant will lead to a future grant application so that we can continue our work in this area. Finally, in terms of general advice for people who might be preparing to submit a bid for the first time, some of these might seem like obvious points and they might overlap with the advice that came from Shinatra and Jane earlier. But if possible, I'd say try and come up with an idea that you feel excited about. This will make it a lot easier to present a compelling case. But also bear in mind that whatever topic you propose, you need to be able to make a strong case for the importance and relevance of your research in order to have a good chance of success. I'd say start writing down something as soon as possible, even if it's only a first draft or even a skeleton of the first draft. I found it really helped to focus my thoughts once I started writing the draft of the proposal. Of course, it's inevitable, so it will go through many revisions later, but the earlier you can start the writing process, the more it will help to focus the refinements that you try to make later on. Listen to as much advice as you can from people who've been through the process before, and also the research services within your department, because they can give you lots of specific tips, like what should be included in the letters for support that you provide from project partners. And I would also suggest that when it comes to specifying objectives for your project, it's tempting to try to be as ambitious as you possibly can to make the proposal sound more impressive, but you've also got to try and be realistic about what you can achieve in the time period that you've got. And you need to convince the panel about your ability to deliver the intended outcomes. So try to strike the right balance between being ambitious and being realistic as well. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge our funders, the EPSRC, and thank you very much for listening to my talk, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, that was very interesting. Do we have any specific questions for Rob? Not getting anything yet, Rob. So we'll we'll put things to you when we get to the panel. Thanks very much, Rob, and we'll move on to Christos.
Yes, Luke, can you see my slides?
Yes, I can see those.
Excellent. And my pointer as I scroll around? Or?
Yes, I can see that too.
All right, okay. So hi everyone, I'm Christos Vasilakis. I'm a professor at the School of Management, University of Bath. I'm going to be talking about other sources of research funding. And then again, Luke mentioned that the last time we had an ECR event, that was in not online. We were at the University of Bath School of Management when the building actually had just opened, more or less. And we had a bit more fun than you can have when you meet online. But then again, I understand that, we cannot always have this. But before I tell you about the focus of today's brief talk by me, just to say that there are a number of caveats. First of all, I'm taking a health and care focus, but hopefully you will find something that is transferable for your research ideas and projects, even if it's not health and care. I come with a limited viewpoint of what is out there, so the list of sources and opportunities is definitely not exhaustive. And don't forget that every time we talk about this, there's first of all survival bias. So there's a lot of other research proposals that we are not listing here that never saw the light of day, and also everybody's fighting against a very low base rate. So at the best of cases, the success rate is 1 in 3 or thereabouts. Usually, it's a lot less than that. So just something to keep in mind. So we're going to talk about big research funders, other than EPSRC, of course, because Sinatra has done this much better than I could ever do. And we're going to talk about other national research funders and charities, direct contracts that not many people talk about, and probably that would be a little bit more interesting than others. Internal sources that probably those of you who have a faculty position will know about them. And also, let's not forget there are international sources out there like EU funding, but not only. One can apply, one can consider, especially between PhD and a faculty position, can consider going abroad for a while. I did that. At the end of my PhD, I applied for a fellowship from a Canadian funder, and I ended up doing a postdoc in Canada for a couple of years, working with different set of researchers, different healthcare system. It was all very, very exciting and very interesting. I'm not going to, obviously, the sky's the limit when it comes to international sources, but something to keep in mind when it comes to thinking where you can find the next pot of money to work on a research project. Also, just to say that, and that's not necessarily how one is in terms of personality traits. You can decide to sail solo in a particular research grant, and if it is a fellowship, it's primarily a solo piece of work, although you need a host and all this. But also you can be part of a bigger team. So when I talk about, I don't know, medical research council potential opportunities, but if you start thinking, well, but I'm not a medical researcher, I don't know much about biochemistry or whatever, well, you can team up with people who do know all this, but they don't have the expertise that you have. So a collaborative research grant is something that is usually expected rather than solo effort. So, think of not just of what you can bring to a research proposal on your own, but also how you can contribute within a team, and also how you can team up with people that don't have your expertise in order to submit very interesting research proposals. So now, big research funders in the UK, other than EPSRC. So if you go to the ECRs website, you will find all these different councils that are kind of basically under the umbrella of the ECRs. I'm not going to focus on all of them. I'm going to focus on first of all, before focusing on 2 or 3 individual councils, first of all, just to say that if you want to see what's being funded, ECRI has this really good gateway, and you can find any kind of, most projects that are funded. I have to admit, I couldn't find certain projects. I think they're probably in the process of amalgamating data sources or something like that. But go to this website and you can start searching for whatever you want to search and see what has been funded by individual councils or ECRI in general in your area or other areas. So the first one that I have here is the ECSRC, the Economic and Social Research Council. It does fund economics. So, a lot of the work that we do can be considered or does fall under the kind of economics remit, if you like. And indeed, there are successful grants out there that funded by the SRC that even have operational research in the title or in the abstract. That's an example here. It's a current one from University of Kent. We also have one around financial shocks that talks about operational research. But then again, as we know, and we've been discussing all along within the OR Society all the years that I remember, not every OR project has a term OR or operational research in it. So if you want to start searching for opportunities for other research projects, you need to be a little bit more imaginative with the terms that you're going to use. things from AI to mathematical modeling to optimization to whatever. So if you widen your search criteria and your search keywords, then you can come up with something that sounds a lot like OR to me, that has been funded by ECRs. Now we have the Medical Research Council, which is one of the major funders in the UK. A lot of money, obviously, is dispersed through the MRC. I couldn't find much in terms of operation under the term operational research, but once you insert mathematical modeling in your search term, then you get a lot of hits. So for most of us, applying to an MRC grant, unless it's a very specific MRC grant for example, methodological developments in the area of mathematical optimization as applied to, I don't know, bioinformatics or something, is probably not the wisest choice. But you can team up in a bigger team and apply. And I know I have many colleagues of mine or former colleagues of mine who are operational researchers that have received MRC funding as part of larger teams. Those of us that are based in the universities that have large biomedical research centers can probably benefit from this type of funding, potentially more than others. But of course, you can team up with researchers from universities outside your own. The other one that probably you've heard, perhaps you haven't, is Innovate UK. Now, Innovate UK has a number of mechanisms, and Innovate UK is a bit slightly different than the other research councils insofar as they're not only looking for research excellence, but also they're trying to create wealth. There is a particular funding mechanism that's called the KTP, stands for Knowledge Transfer Partnership, that looks to fund businesses working together with university-based academics in order to work on an applied research project. As an academic, you first of all have access to data and problems and people that can be very, very beneficial. You can also get some extra money and some extra research time and kind of some time off teaching, if you like. So it actually can be very, very interesting. And it's one of my projects that is actually about to finish at the end of February this month is a KTP project that has we've published out of it. We've had access to really good data. We've access to end users to run surveys with them of what kind of simulation modeling they would like to see, or what kind of other operational research methods they would like to see as part of the decision-making process. So it can be very, very interesting. And another one that came to my mind that I've seen some publicity recently is again down in Kent, and work that was done with the Port of Dover traffic flow project. So KTPs, the good thing about KTPs is once you have the team together and the project idea and your university is supportive, the chances of success are over 80%. The challenge is, and the filtering, if you like, is to put together the team, to team up with a company that meets the criteria that Innovate UK has, on the kind of companies wants to fund. And then once all this is described, then you don't need to play against a 5 or 10 or 15% success rate. You play against a much, much higher success rate. So that can be refreshingly optimistic, if you ask me. Finally, in terms of major funders, we have the NIHR. In a sense, think of it as the funding research arm, the research funding arm of the NHS. They disperse a lot of money every year. They have a lot of mechanisms, and you can see these mechanisms here on the right-hand side. The ones that have applied and have gotten some funding as part of teams, and I know that other R projects have been funded, is this one, Health and Social Care Delivery Research, and also Research for Patient Benefit. Now, they have their own small print, they have their own terms and conditions, the kind of different aims and objectives that they're looking for. I think it's beyond the scope of this short talk to go into the detail of it. But, well, by all means, have a look on the website and don't hesitate to drop me a line if you want some specific advice. I'll be happy to have a chat with you. Quite a lot of projects, though, have been funded through NIHR. And recently they're running competitions specifically for operational research as one of the underrepresented methodological disciplines within applied health research. And now there's a call around sustainability and decarbonization of health and social care delivery, which a lot of people working in logistics, supply chains, modeling might find very interesting. Other national research funders and charities, probably you know many of them. Have the Wellcome Trust that funds over £1 billion pounds worth of research funding, primarily in medical and global public health. British Heart Foundation, the Health Foundation, the NAFL Trust. There are many, many, many of those, and of course there will be funders in your area of application and the things that you're interested in. I've done quite a lot of work with grants through the Health Foundation. We got over £100,000 to work with a particular NHS organization to develop simulation, more reusable simulation models for decision-making support, and I found them very, very interesting because they can build in with collaborations with the partners, which usually is one of the hardest things to find. Not direct contracts. What I mean by that is basically funding awarded to university directly from a company or organization or a charity to work on a specific project. I built quite a lot of the program of research that I have here the last 11, 12 years at Bath, getting direct contracts with NHS organizations to work on a particular research project that is of interest to the organization that funds it, of course, but also is of interest from a research perspective. And of course, once you have the collaboration, the partnership, and you don't respond to some sort of open competition, usually something that you can negotiate and discuss and agree with before you actually send in the final kind of proposal, if you like. So once everything is in place, the funding can be a lot easier to obtain. Now, there is a caveat here, of course, as with most things, is that how your university will calculate the overhead cost is key to all this. If they want to claim all the kind of full economic costing and 100%, if you don't know what that means, well, bear with me for a while, but it's a way that the university will calculate additional costs. If they want to include all the additional costs that they usually include when it comes to ECRs or other UKRI funding, then it's not that clear that your chance of getting funded in a direct contract are much lower. In my experience, you have to negotiate internally with your finance/dean/head of department people in order to try to reduce as much as possible the overheads that they're trying to reclaim from any grant like this. But in my division, EDF gave us over £1 million in a direct contract to set up a supply chain innovation lab that has nothing to do with healthcare. And this is an example of a decision support systems publication with a couple of my colleagues that was based solely, or to a large extent, on a direct contract that we had with the local NHS trust in order to help them with a particular decision-making process. You can actually earn quite a bit of money, research money that is, and employ postdocs, PhD students, and all sorts of researchers as part of a direct contract. And time resources, that's quickly, especially if you're a lecturer that just started, usually a university, and the more research intensive the university, probably the better the chances and the better the opportunities, they will have some scheme to fund your research. It could be £3,000, it could be £5,000, it could be £10,000. Usually the process is quite quick and not, you don't have to fill out all sorts of forms, but it will give you some money to get started with some research project. And usually funders and panel members and whoever is assessing your proposal, they like to see that you've already done some work, that you already attracted some funding. Usually money follows money. So it can be seed code funding for research, it could be specific research support at department, faculty, or university level. And it's, as I said, it's a great starting point for especially for lecturers, but not only. Okay, that's about it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Christos. That was a nice broad overview of all sorts of different areas. Do we have any specific questions for Christos?
Thank you, Janatra, for the links that you shared here. I just saw them. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Some are relevant to the things that I mentioned.
Okay, so I don't think we've got any specific questions. So let's move on to
I'm going to stop sharing, I guess, now.
Oh yes, thank you.
I'm going to open it up to the whole group.
Yeah. to move on to some questions for everyone. So the first one we got right at the beginning from Sheba was, are there any grants or sources of funding for that ongoing PhD students can apply for that you're aware of?
Well, I did mention in my talk that as a PhD student, I did apply for the next step, which was a postdoctoral fellowship, and actually was in Canada rather than in the UK. So that's something to consider, that you can start thinking about what you're going to be doing after the PhD, and what they expect to see is receive an application for somebody who's towards the end of their PhD program or have finished the PhD program. So that's one of the things that you can consider doing. But Chanatra, I think you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just want to echo what you just said. Like for postdoctoral fellowship, this one, then the opportunity that you can apply, but the condition is that you have to hold a doctorate degree, by the start date of your fellowship. Even though, I mean, it's not really that you can apply it independently, because you need a host organization, who, if it's successful, then they'll take you on board. And also the research organization support is one of the assessment criteria that we do, that we assess for the postdoc fellowship. But other than that, I mean, the EPSSA or ECRI, we support doctoral training through university. So you have to apply to university directly if you want to do a PhD. I mean, if that's the state that you are currently. Yeah.
Thank you. Carol, you got your.
Okay, just the Holborn Institute, I'll put the address in the chat. They're always worth looking at. They sometimes have funding opportunities for PhD students. So I'll put that in. Have a look at that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Carol. Okay, so we've got a question from Elizabeth. For any grants that require to go in front of the panel, is there any tips or advice for this?
Practice, 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 practice. Speak to your colleagues who've done it and get them to do a mock interview with you.
Yeah.
They're usually harder than the real thing, in my experience.
Definitely a mock interview,
Yeah, just to clarify, so I assume that's talking about the kind of application where you need an interview, because, for example, my small grant went in front of a panel, but I wasn't interviewed, so it's a different thing, isn't it? So I wouldn't know about interview tips.
Great, thank you. So next question from Shraddha. Can there be overlaps amongst funds, like applying for small funding when there's an ongoing postdoc contract?
I think generally speaking, yes, they can. Yeah. And usually you can actually describe a larger piece of work, a program of research that you might need 5-10 years to complete, and then, start sending different parts to different funders, something that, in my experience in North American labs, they do quite a lot. They get usually hired as assistant professors or faculty on the basis of some program of research, which then they kind of change into individual research proposal that they send to all sorts of funders in order to play the low success rates as well. So yes, and usually money follows money. So once you're successful in the first one, you can keep on going back either to the same funder or another funder for additional projects that don't do exactly the same thing as the first one, but they do things in the periphery of the first funded project. Success breeds success.
Janatra, did you want to comment on this?
Yeah, just want to add to Christos is that but for the maximum grant, the condition that we have is that you can only hold a maximum grant at any one time. But of course, let's say if you have a maximum grant, you can also, hold any other grants at the same time as well. I mean, as long as, it won't, your time won't go over 100% of your, of your time. So, but that is, for university and your department to look after you, take care of you, that you won't, work too much or won't overwork. Yeah.
Okay, either Rob or Jane want to mention that or say anything on that? No? Okay. So next question, do you have any advice for receiving rejections? It's been mentioned that chances for success are low for many opportunities. Do you get feedback, and would you revise your application and reapply?
I think it's I'm just sort of following up on that question with a question. I think it's interesting to ask the extent to which you can sort of regenerate ideas from a bid that's been turned down and use them for another bid. I think there could be different rules for different schemes and different funders. So I would also like to just contribute that question as well.
In my experience, a rejection for a grant proposal is different to a rejection for a paper. A rejection for a paper usually, you might get a little bit, sad or upset, or you can quickly turn it around on the basis of feedback that usually is quite detailed, and there's always another journal. You will find a journal for any paper. The quality of the journal, of course, it's not guaranteed. With a research proposal, I'm afraid it's, at least according to my experience, a little bit different. You don't get much feedback, if at all, and it can be a lot more emotionally charging, compared to a paper rejection, at least to me. And you can spend a lot of time putting together a large team and applying for a big funding. You might go through the first and second stages and then, drop out of the last hurdle. And also that team you put together is quite specific for a particular point in time and for a particular funding opportunity. So it's not that easy to recycle. It was partly in response to this that when I came to Bath 10, 11 years ago, I decided to build relations with NHS organizations and go down the route of direct contracts with them rather than apply to research funders. Not that I did not apply to research funders, but given the low chance of success, I thought that I cannot put all my eggs in one basket, and I rather hedge a bit my risk. So it is a difficult game to play. It's a little bit, it's a bit more emotionally, potentially you can spend quite a bit of time for not much reward. Let's put it that way. But that's the way it is, I'm afraid. And nowadays, a lot of universities, and the same here, a lot of business schools, management schools, perhaps maths department and OR researchers are based. Until a few years ago, you didn't need to have any funding or any application for funding. I think now for us, in terms of probation periods and promotion applications, it has become a lot more important. So it's something that we have to do more and more. And of course, for different set of scientists, if you work in lab sciences, if you work in healthcare, biomedical research, engineering, the currency there is money, is research funding, is not papers. Papers is secondary. So the university at the top level is used to be talking about money rather than publications against a particular list or impact factor.
Janatra, do you want to come in?
I just want to add on the feedbacks, whether it'll be provided. Okay, as Krista said, it depends on the scheme by scheme. But like for maximum grant, before we didn't provide feedback to applicants, and we when we hear from the community that because it's the single stage submission, you didn't get reviewers' comment, you didn't have opportunity to respond to those comments, and you'll be be useful for all applicants to receive feedback. So that's why I think we've at the moment we pilot the light touch feedback for all the small grant applications since the last panel in October. And for next week we're going to have the next small grant panel as well, which we will be providing feedbacks for all applicants, whether you're successful or unsuccessful. And for the funding opportunities that you get reviewed by reviewers, I believe the comments from reviewers is a sort of feedback for your grant applications as well. Yeah. And another thing is that we don't normally invite for resubmission unless the panel think that the small adjustment or improvement will create your competitiveness. I mean, a lot better. If it's the small change can make you very competitive, that's kind of thing. That is when we will invite for resubmission. But otherwise, yeah, I'm afraid you have to adjust your applications, maybe different objectives, or add additional elements, that kind of thing, and then submit the new application.
Great, thank you very much. So we've got two other questions which we'll try to get to before finishing. So one is from Talia. When applying for UKRI postdoctoral fellowships, what is the difference between a project partner versus contractor versus consultant? I have some external collaborators in mind, but I'm unsure how to name them in my application.
Yes, I mean, we have the descriptions, what is the, in terms of the roles on the grant applications. I can share a bit later, but project partners, they can, are those who are not part of the organization that you're applying for. Like it's not your institution that you're based on, not your research organizations, and they can be an academic from a different countries. It can be in industry as well, and for the contractor and consultant, we on our page currently we don't have a specific description for that, but I believe that they can, if they fall into the same description, they can be classified as the project partner. I'll send you the link as well about the application and the description rules.
Thanks, Shinatra. And then last one also for Shinatra as well. It's to do with the change in the new investigator award, in terms of changing the sort of changing the sections. So the question being, are there any shifts in focus? Should they just reorganize the previous sections into the new format, or any other suggestions? Yes,
I mean the as I said, because we need to use the harmonized approach across UKRI, that's why we have to stick with the 5 core assessment criteria, the vision approach, and the other 3. So in terms of national importance, because we believe that the national importance can be demonstrated throughout the other, I mean, in different parts of the assessment criteria. It can be described in the vision, what you see, and it can be about team capability to deliver. If your teams contribute to the greater good for the nation, that kind of thing. And then on each funding opportunities, we for each assessment criteria, we have a specific details about what the assessors are looking for on each assessment criteria. I think that would be really helpful for you to frame your grant application according to each assessment criteria.
Okay.
I mean, so is there any shift in focusing? It's not really like a shift, because as I said, like all the what national important is a key. I mean, for EPSRC or UKRI, because we want to fund talented researchers.
Thank you very much, Shinatra. And yeah, so we'll to a close there. Yeah, I just want to pass my thanks on very much to Shinatra, Jane, Rob, and Christos. I learned something from all of the different sections, so thank you very much for that. I hope it's been useful to everyone else as well, and look forward to seeing you again at a future ECR event.
And you can also contact me directly if you have any questions. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.